You are valued, and you are needed.
You will be Emperor.
I think you're about to go where everyone has gone before.
The year is 2023. The name of the podcast, Babylon 5, for the first time.
Welcome to Babylon 5 for the first time. My name is Jeff Akin, and I'm watching Babylon 5 for the first time.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I'm also watching Babylon 5 for the very first time. Jeff and I are two veteran Star Trek podcasters watching Babylon 5 for the very first time, and we are searching for what we call those Star Trek-like messages, but we're really trying to see how Babylon 5 does them in its own special way.
And this is not a podcast about Star Trek. To keep us honest, we play the rule of three. This is a game where each one of us gets up to three references to Star Trek per episode.
That's it. 3. Uno, dos, tres. No substitutions, exchanges, or refund.
Hey, Brent.
Hey, Jeff.
We have a 5-star review.
Oh, yes.
It's from Apple Podcasts.
Jeff, I'm sorry. I got to stop you. So something about that sound clip. There is this little, there's this little moment right at the end, and I don't know what Jakar is doing, but it sounds like he snorts at the end. Have you ever noticed this?
Let me listen. Hold on. Okay, here we go.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I never caught that.
I've never said anything, but it always makes me laugh just a little bit.
I love that scene, though, because literally he's just like, he's
It's like he's Daddy Pig from Peppa Pig or something. Sorry.
Oh, man.
Go ahead. Reset.
This is from Apple Podcast. 90s kid yells at clouds says, and this is actually really timely given our conversation last week, great to listen to, frustrating for all the right reasons. Happy I've caught up with the shows and I can listen on my Monday commute. No false advertising here. The hosts are an encyclopedia of Star Trek knowledge and great at connecting their first watch to both Trek and, in an oddly fitting way, organizational leadership dynamics. If I have one frustrating thing, it's how not encyclopedic their knowledge is of other influences of this show, like Tolkien and other classic sci-fi novels and movies. Not making the connections between Clark's Rama or, well, to avoid spoilers, lots of things in The Lord of the Rings has me yelling at my phone on the regular. Guys, Zahadum, Khazad-dûm, so many connections. Loving every minute, though, even the frustrating parts.
I will say this, particularly after, in these last couple of weeks and seeing some stuff. One of the premises we started the show with was kind of going, okay, so we've always heard that Deep Space Nine supposedly ripped off Babylon 5. I kind of want to see what it is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I need a better word than rip off. Jeff, give me
leveraged, inspired by.
Yes. Okay. I would say that based on what I'm seeing now, it almost seems to me, and I haven't seen the whole show, but it almost seems to me that Babylon 5 was more inspired by Lord of the Rings than Deep Space Nine was inspired by Babylon 5.
I agree. And also, if we really start digging back, and we're going to talk about some of this here in a little bit, Lord of the Rings was inspired by a lot of stuff before that, a lot of Greek and Roman mythology, sure. The Bible, very specifically, Tolkien is famously a very devout person, and the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy is really an examination of Christ and all the stuff that goes along with that. So this goes way back. So yeah, I think, we talked about it before. Casey Hudson, who was one of the executive producers for Mass Effect, he's like, yeah, we borrowed from Babylon 5 and Buck Rogers and Star Wars and Star Trek because everyone borrows from everyone. And that's how this works.
And Babylon 5 borrowed from blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I remember you saying that. How dare he say I have not an encyclopedic knowledge?
Right. Seriously.
Actually, I may not have an encyclopedic knowledge, but I do have I think I have a pretty good grasp on a lot of these things, despite what people out there say.
I think we do pretty good. You know, I'd say at least once a week, someone's like, oh my gosh, I never made that connection before.
I promise you are going to make a Lord of the Rings connection in this episode.
Yeah. A Bible one too. There's going to be a Bible one in this. Yeah.
In fact, it might be a Lord of the Rings connection and a Bible connection in the same reference.
Right? It's weird. Weird how that works, you know? Hey, you know what?
What's that?
We have another 5-star review.
Oh, yes.
I'm never not going to hear that now. You've ruined the drop. I'm going to go in after this, I think, and fix it. I'm going to be like, can I just take that little piece away? Well, this one's also from Apple Podcast. Big Bucks Mama says, that's a great name.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Big Bucks Mama says, my favorite B5 podcast. I absolutely love this podcast. Jeff and Brent are fantastic, and their guesses are always so spot on. Unless the times that they're not. And then they are really far off. But I won't tell you which is which because, well, spoilers. Well, for now, all I will say is when comes to get ready because we'll reveal that he is, and you won't even see it coming. Then we'll, and you're gonna love it. Big Bucks Mama violated the rule of 3 there pretty judiciously.
I think Big Bucks Mama might have confused Star Trek references and buzzes with spoilers, but whatever.
It's still fun.
Okay, so here's the thing. First of all, shout out to you, Big Bucks Mama. I think, okay, I don't know who Big Bucks Mama is, but like our friend Wash, Big Bucks Mama has like kind of followed me through several different podcasts that I've had over the years.
That's cool.
And I'm going to assume it's a she, like emails in and occasionally tweets and different stuff like that. So it's fun. Listen, when you're hearing this, Big Bucks Mama, Mama, you're cool. You're one of my favorite, like, people that it just make me smile, the stuff you send in. So, thanks for doing a review here too. That's awesome.
That's super cool.
Well, hey, Jeff, along with our rule of 3 and reading reviews and things like that, one of the other games that we like to play on this show is when we get to the end of the episode, we take a look at next week's episode title, and that's all we've ever seen out of it is the title, and we try to guess what next week's episode is going to be about based on that title alone. Sometimes we're ridiculously close, and other times we're ridiculously far away. Now's the time to find out just how close or far away we were. So, Jeff, do you remember what you said Whatever Happened to Mr. Garibaldi was going to be about, and how close were you?
So I thought the big sting on this was going to be that we weren't going to see Garibaldi at all in this one. And for most of the episode, we didn't. But then we got a big little reveal going with him. But I thought this was mostly going to be Jakar running around trying to figure out what happened to Garibaldi. Pretty much nailed that piece. How about you? How'd you do?
Well, I said that this was going to be literally all about Garibaldi, and it was literally going to be like his story, and we probably weren't going to see too many of the other people, because when we last saw him, Sheridan had given him a job, didn't tell us what it was, made it a big secret, said he couldn't tell anybody, sent him out in a Starfury, and he attached his Starfury to a shadow ship, or he got swallowed up by the shadow ship. One of the two, I couldn't really tell which, and that's the last we saw of him. And this to me was the episode where we were gonna track his story wherever he went. And honestly, in the Lord of the Rings kind of a way, the crew splits, like the Fellowship of the Rings split, and we track with each of the different stories as we go through. My thought was going to be through the season, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not at all what this episode was about.
But you want to know what this episode was about? Are you curious? Have we piqued your curiosity in any way? Have you not watched this in like 25, 30 years? Did you just watch it the other day and you're curious what our take is on it? Maybe it is, because that's why you're listening to this. Brent, will you do myself, our viewers and our listeners, a huge solid and walk us through whatever happened to Mr. Garibaldi?
Well, hey, you remember that weird guy with Sheridan way down in that hole? Well, it turns out he has a name, and his name is Lorien, as in Lothlorien, as in the forest. And also, not only that, but he is also the first one. No, not a first one. The first one, as in father of all, like everyone, as in God. And he really doesn't like to see his children. That's the Vorlons and the Shadows and you and me and the Minbari and everybody. He doesn't like to see us fighting. And as for Sheridan, well, maybe he's dead. Maybe he's still falling. Maybe he's caught in a moment between moments. Maybe he is simply caught between life and death. Wherever he is, Sheridan wants out. And this guy, Lorien, knows the way, but he isn't giving that up because he's now got somebody to talk to. Sheridan is actually the first one to make it this far. The Shadows know that Lorien is down in there, which is why they keep coming back to Zahadum. They think it's honoring or something like that, but really they don't even know anymore. And the Vorlons, well, they're just scared to die, kind of like Sheridan is. But that's not life, Lorien says. Clinging to life is not living. Lorien says that Sheridan must let go of his life and give in to the current situation in order to be free of it. And finally, as Sheridan does, he finds himself holding on to the one thing that makes life worth living for, Delenn. Speaking of Delenn is on a long-term fast, but Dr. Franklin is concerned because after all, Delenn doesn't just have a Minbari body anymore. She's human now, and this could actually be really dangerous for her. But honestly, I don't think Delenn was listening to Dr. Franklin express this to her at all because she's still caught up on why didn't she tell Sheridan about Anna and her possibly still being alive? Was it because she wanted Sheridan all to herself and now she's responsible for Sheridan going to Zahadum? Until she sees a video of Sheridan recording his thoughts on the moment, he realized he was in love with her. And Delenn decides that's it. She is going to mount a full-scale assault of Zahadum, so strap in, boys! And speaking of boys, Marcus Cole and G'Kar are off to find Mr. Garibaldi. They don't have much to go on, but they do wind up in a bar somewhere, and some dirty, rotten rat sells out G'Kar to the Centauri, and G'Kar gets captured and taken back to Centauri Prime. Emperor Cartagia summons Londo, who is shocked to see G'Kar, who is being given to Londo as a surprise present by Cartagia. Later, when they're alone, G'Kar and Londo have a conversation. Londo tells G'Kar about his plan to off the Mad Emperor, but he needs G'Kar's help. Now, G'Kar is going to have to endure whatever the Emperor is getting ready to do to him. Londo is just going to have to watch. And when the time is right, G'Kar is going to help Londo kill Emperor Cartagia. And in exchange for this, Londo will ensure that the Narn are set free once again. Now, after all of that, we haven't even talked about Mr. Garibaldi, and the whole name of this episode is Whatever Happened to Mr. Garibaldi? Well, turns out he was captured and put into a holding cell, apparently a Psy-Corps holding cell at that. That's it. 1 minute and 40 seconds of screen time, and the entire episode was named after that. The end. Jeff, what did you think of this episode? Whatever happened to Mr. Garibaldi?
Dude, this was dark. This was a really, really dark episode. Like, come to expect that from time to time with Babylon 5. Like, it's not an unheard of thing, but holy crud. But nothing shocking. Again, like, I mean, that's not true. There's a lot shocking when we talk about Lothlorien. Excuse me, Lorien. Because, yep, I got that too. But this is, we're on the rails. Like, we're rolling. Things are moving. We're going to have some extra context, added along the way, but I think like we're strapped in for the ride. G'Kar ending up captured on Centauri Prime, not a shock, right? Like this was likely going to be a place we were going to end up. We saw him, show up in that future place in War Without End. You said Lorien might be God, essentially. I have very different thoughts. We have a lot to talk about with Lorien. I'm going to address this directly to people out there. I really liked Dr. Franklin in this episode. I thought he was great. I thought he was perfect, basically. I really, really liked him in this one. But, oh, my God. You want to talk about symbolism? You want to talk about bonk,
real quick,
on
Jeff,
the head?
Jeff,
oh, yeah.
Ask me how many notes I have about Dr. Franklin in my whole thing here.
Stand by. We'll be right back. Are you ready to take your Babylon 5 for the first time experience to the next level? With our exclusive Patreon, you'll get access to all kinds of cool stuff that you can only find there.
our recording notes, unedited reaction videos, an exclusive Discord community, and you can even be listed as a producer of the show. Plus, we even offer exclusive meet and greets and hangouts. You won't find this kind of experience anywhere else. Get all these amazing benefits, plus the opportunity to interact with other fans from around the world. It's being part of a huge community where everyone shares the same appreciation for Babylon 5. Subscribe at patreon.com/Babylon5First. That's the number 5 and the word first to get access to these incredible benefits. That's patreon.com/Babylon5First. We can't wait to see you there. Hey, Brent, how many notes do you have about Dr. Franklin?
Not a single one.
Really?
Not a one. Go ahead.
I have 3, because I am capable of looking past my biases and judging someone on their performance and their objective behavior. But hey,
I barely noticed him in this episode.
Maybe part of the reason I liked him in it, maybe. I mean, everybody loves Brussels sprouts if you only have to eat part of one, you know? I mean, it's not that bad.
No, I still don't like Brussels sprouts.
I love them, actually. I really love Brussels sprouts. But this, gosh, I mean, G'Kar, strung with the cross, you know, carrying the timber as he walks, literally walking the stations of the cross. Like we are at the first station right now with G'Kar, and it is so good. In fact, we'll talk about it in detail, but I would like right now, in retrospective whatever thing, to submit my nomination for Peter Jurasik for Emmy for Outstanding Dramatic Performance in a Science Fiction thing, because holy crud, he brought it in this episode. What about you? What were your first reactions?
Well, the first thing that I think I need to say, Jeff, is happy anniversary to you and Mrs. Jeff.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
It is that time of year for you guys. So happy anniversary to you guys.
It is. It's always a fun time. Thank you.
This is an episode where we are still dealing with the fallout of what happened at the end of season 3. Not everybody's back on the station yet. We're not back to life as normal, which usually you get to by like episode 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
We're not there yet. This is going to carry on. I don't see G'Kar and probably Londo coming back to the station very often, if at all, for the remainder of this season anyway. At least not in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I could see G'Kar never stepping foot on Babylon 5 again. Like, that's a very realistic path right now.
I thought right up until the very end, we might not see Sheridan back on Babylon on Babylon 5. I think now we have a really good chance of seeing him back on Babylon 5, presuming that whatever this assault that Delenn's about to lead is, you know, going to be effective in rescuing him. However, that works because Jeff, we got to talk. I got some questions we got to talk about. Like, what the heck is this whole thing? We'll get there. This is not an episode that I can sit back and say I loved.
Okay.
This is not an episode that, like, when we get to the end of Babylon 5 and I'm thinking back to, man, that was a good episode, am I going to remember this episode? In fact, I venture to say by the time we get halfway through this season and we're doing rankings and be like, wait, what happened? Whatever happened to Mr. Garibaldi? Oh yeah, it was all that stuff. Everything that happened in this episode, though, was important.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing wasted in this episode. I don't know that cohesively, like, it makes a great episode, but every bit of it was so good. Probably the best thing to me, though, is for the first time in a long time, Jeff, we got Londo and G'Kar in a room talking. And once again, they stole the episode. Now, the whole stuff with Sheridan and Lorian, I dug. I loved that whole bit. But G'Kar and there's just something so strong about those two together. And I was thinking about this the other day, a while back, Jeff, like maybe a year ago at this point. Our friends over at the Gray 17 podcast had Peter Jurasik as a guest on one of their shows.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm listening and a lot of the questions somehow revolved around Peter and his relationship with Andreas. But I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, you know, Peter actually spent a lot more time with Steven first than he did with Andreas.
Yeah.
I mean, now I don't know what's coming up here in the last 2 seasons for Londo and G'Kar and how much time they're going to be together, but we haven't really seen Londo and G'Kar on screen together since really season 1.
Well, we saw in a friendly way. I think the last time we saw them together was Dust to Dust,
which was the elevator scene, right?
No, that was Convictions.
Okay.
Was that, and then Dust to Dust was
where
he snorted
Jakar,
up and
like,
then he would
beat
him within an inch.
Crap out of him, right?
Yeah.
And then, but then there was the elevator scene, and then before that, it was just a couple of small moments. But you remember that episode, that season 1, like it was just Londo and Jakar rubbing against each other and stealing every scene that they were in together. This is like one of the first, we just haven't had that in so long. But I was thinking, like, with Steven first, like, what was his relationship like with Steven?
Yeah.
And I'd be interested, because everybody always asks about the Londo and Andreas, the Peter and Andreas, but I wanted that. I can see out of this episode why it's the Londo and Jakar relationship that stands out, because there is, like, Peter is at his very best as an actor when it's Andreas across the way. That's taking nothing away from Steven. I'm taking nothing away from Bruce or Mira or Jerry or anybody. I'm not taking anything away from any of them. But when Andreas is the one who's across the room from him, Peter just elevates all the way around. And it was so good to see that. I loved the conversation, like I said, that Lorian and Sheridan had with each other. The Delenn stuff, you know, her and Sheridan having come to the realization that they both love each other, now being able to voice it to each other in various ways and being able to step out in that love and act as a part of what that love is super compelling to me.
Yeah.
Even if what they're doing, and in this case, Mira, like, rallying the Rangers to go off on a weird, you know, rescue mission, and they're all like, wait, we're going where? Even if it's that, like her reasoning for doing so, like, I find so much of this really, really compelling. What is it we've been saying, I think, in a couple episodes, Jeff? This might be an episode where the parts are greater than the sum.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's I think where I'm going to stay with it. I think the parts of this episode are greater than the whole.
Because there were very different episodes in this episode, right? There was the Jakar and Marcus thing that was its own fun little episode in and of itself. There was the Delenn going through her stuff that was an episode. Then there was the Jakar and Londo thing that was an episode. And then you had the Sheridan and Lorian stuff. Like, these were not connected.
Hey, the Fellowship is broken up and they're all doing their own thing right now.
Uh-huh. Yeah. That all ties together way up here. It's there. But we're looking at the pieces right now.
And you know what? I would be really okay, Jeff, if we never got everybody back on Babylon 5 and we go, okay, what's Tuesday like on Babylon 5 right now? Like, I'm okay to not have that episode, because I don't think you can have that episode, really.
Can't go back again. I don't see and I don't see where, like, I don't see Londo and Jakar on Babylon 5. You know what I mean? Like I said, I don't see Jakar there, but they can't ever be together. Because this has a very natural progression, and we've seen the end of this, where, I mean, Jakar is going to go through hell. Londo is going to go through hell, having to watch him do this. In fact, what I'm looking forward to is watching their relationship. Their relationship's not a strong enough word. Their bond. Watching their bond grow through the shared trauma of what's going on, right? I think they're both so great with the face acting, even through the makeup. And I think that's what we're going to see a lot of. You know, Jakar in Torment and Londo in Torment.
Can we give credit to the makeup team, particularly those who worked on the Jakar character, to do the makeup in such a way as to allow the facial expressions of Andreas to come through? Because, I mean, frankly, through the latex in Star Trek so often, we really can't ever see that.
We think of him as Tomalak, right? Where he's a Romulan, and that's not a lot. That's not a lot of makeup on there, but it was enough that it was stifling. Like, I get more facial emotion and reaction from Andreas Katsulas under all that Garibaldi makeup, or sorry, that Jakar makeup. It's the hat. It's the Garibaldi hat that he had there than I ever did as Tomalak with the Romulan stuff.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, with that, let's talk about Jakar. Let's track his storyline and kind of get through him. So he goes off on a mission to find Garibaldi.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he wants. Why does he want to go find Garibaldi? because he's got a cool hat and he wants to get him back. Like, he's become his buddy, I guess. Like, it's his dear good friend, Mr. Garibaldi. Oh, wait, wrong.
I've never had a friend before who wasn't Narn, he says. And it was just like, that's pretty powerful. Also says a lot about how he sees his relationship with everyone else.
So he goes off, and Marcus is there to not watch his back, apparently.
Okay. First, let me say, I enjoyed this whole thing with them on the planet and the, trying to like, I got this piece of a Starfury. Tell me what it means. Tell me what it means. I enjoyed all of it. Also, it kind of doesn't hold up. So I'm G'Kar, the last of the Kari. I know I'm wanted. I know I'm a dead man the second I walk off the station. So what do? I go to a planet that is clearly controlled by the Centauri because they're walking around in their little gold hats and stuff.
Which, by the way, looks goofy as hell.
Dumb.
Now,
Just
I
dumb.
don't know if the British redcoats back in the 1700s looked that stupid to the people of their day, but these guys looked like these are not intimidating fellas. Not to me.
It might have been around the time this episode aired. My high school got rid of the marching band uniforms that I wore when I went there. I wonder if they sent them down.
That's what it looked like, Jeff. That's
Totally.
100% what it looked like.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, if it was, I feel bad for him. Those things smelled terrible. But not only does he go to the lion's den almost, but he doesn't even change his clothes. He's wearing like, look at me in my spiky G'Kar coat. Like, hi, this is who I am. And then to fast forward a little bit, when Marcus is like, basically, hey, I'll take the first watch or whatever. He's like, no, just leave. Like, I got the.
And Marcus leaves. When have you ever seen Marcus just leave? That was so out of character for him. Because normally he's like, okay, yeah, I'll go. And then what does he do? He like goes and hides up in the rafters and then jumps down right when he needs you.
He was in that little, like that hut or whatever. He'd leave and then just kind of tuck away or something. Yeah. This whole sequence didn't add up to me.
Narratively, we needed it because we needed G'Kar to get captured to go to Centauri Prime.
Well, it makes me wonder, right? It makes me wonder. My question is, did he know this? It can't be part of the plan, right? But was part of his plan to go? Like, did he know this was going to happen somehow?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, because that was the first thing he asked Emperor Kartashi. He's still looking for him, but
I don't think it was part of the plan. I will say something I never knew that I needed to see, and frankly, I'd be glad to never ever see it again, is G'Kar brushing his teeth with his finger.
Yeah, what was that with his glove on?
He was brushing his teeth, man.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing.
Like, were there bristles on that glove? Is that?
Nope. I think he was just brushing his. I mean, how did they brush teeth back before toothbrushes? They chew on stuff, or
Get the fingers up in there.
Yeah, I guess. Also, when G'Kar looks at Marcus and tells him like he's going to be offended if he doesn't leave, having seen what I've seen of the Narn, there is nothing scary about the phrase, "There's nothing more inherently dangerous than an offended Narn." I think I can take you.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of you fight, and it's not anything impressive. No. I mean, you get a group of you together with a gospel singer, and you watch out. There's one of you, and you're frankly an old guy. So
right. And I'm a badass fighter. Like, I just took out Naroon. Like,
yeah. This was, I realized when I was watching this, that this moment, that bar fight that's why we had to watch that Avalon episode. It was all that scene where G'Kar, Marcus, and King Arthur were fighting the thugs and down below, was all to make a natural progression for them to just be the ultimate fighting machine together.
I call false.
I'm just trying. I'm trying to connect some dot to that thing.
That episode just did not need to exist. That was, hey, I got 21 ideas. I need one more.
Right.
That's all that is.
King Arthur. Sort of.
That's all that is. So G'Kar gets captured and taken back to Centauri Prime, and the Emperor calls for Londo in the middle of the night. And he rings his teeny tiny little bell.
I loved the bell.
Little teeny tiny little bell. And he's got his little teeny tiny hair crust. Which, by the way, Londo comes in and he's, getting ready and just sweet talking the Emperor. And he's like, yeah, whatever. But have you noticed Londo's getting a little gray around the crest?
Yeah, he's letting, because like when back around Coming of Shadows and that kind of run through in the second season up to the Fall of Night, he was going like dyeing his hair all
he was
black.
hardcore.
Yeah, he was just for men, at that point. And the black jacket and the
Noir Midnight Number 12. Like that was him, yeah.
And now like he's kind of letting himself go a little unnatural. Mm-hmm. But he was so good with Cartagia. Like and I felt like because he said something, he's like, you were late, and so I'm, but you have a good excuse, so I'm not going to kill you. And then he gets up and he's like, I like you. I really like you. And I was like, he does, because game recognized game. He's literally just like, you and me, we are going to hate each other horribly, but we're never going to be able to touch each other.
Right.
And like, he knows that, I think, it's fun.
So fast forward, they do the whole thing. I don't know if you want to talk about anything else in that room, but I got to talk about the conversation between Londo and G'Kar back in the cell. Okay. First of all, on the floor of G'Kar's cell, was there some sort of like pool of blood or bodily fluid, like right in the middle of the cell?
Something kind of wet,
or maybe his own excretions or whatever.
Well, because that's the thing, a little sidetrack there. They never talk about in movies or whatever. Like, yeah, we put him in this cell. We left him there for 6 days. I didn't see a bucket in the scene. Like, what's going on?
So Londo going through in agonizing detail of what they're going to do to him. Talking about cutting him from here to here and piling his organs up if he's still alive, or if not, they don't care. And G'Kar asks him a real interesting question. Does this please you?
Yeah.
And Londo goes, no. He goes, once long ago, no, not even then. And I thought that was such an interesting confession that Londo needed to hear himself say.
It's like, I hate you. I want to see you crushed under my boot heel, but also I want to see you stand up with some dignity. And like, I want to, pardon the phrase. This is really insensitive, but I want to beat you like a man. Right. I think is where he kind of landed. He doesn't want this. This is not where he was. This is not truly what he wanted. And I mean, this really recalled to me those phrases of Londo saying, and I forgot how to dance. Mm-hmm.
Or he's in bed with what's the lady he fell in love with?
Lady Adira.
And he's like, it's all about position. Everybody he's coming back to that Londo. And he puts it to G'Kar, like, I'm gonna kill him and you're gonna do this. And G'Kar's like, well, you're gonna do this for me. And you don't have room to negotiate. Well, neither do you. And yes, we will set Narn free to kill Emperor Cartagia and make this happen. But Londo's like, you're going to have to endure a lot, and I'm going to have to just sit there and watch.
Yeah. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for us to watch, I think.
Yeah.
But I also think, I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. I look forward to the incredible acting that is going to happen through that. And I do believe that what we saw in War Without End, when they finally strangle each other, was where he came out and he greeted him as an old friend and asked him to, do this favor for him. They're going to develop this strong bond through their suffering together.
I don't think he's going to be a friend.
No,
I think that Londo and G'Kar, at least from what I gathered from watching that future piece, they're still enemies.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned there is a bond, and there is a mutual respect, and there is a partnership, but I don't know that it ever actually becomes friendship. And I'll be interested to see if you're right or I'm right, because it'd be cool if it became a friendship. I honestly think it'd be a little cooler if there was always this enmity, always this beef between them, but there was also still a mutual respect. And who I think of when I think of this? I think of Captain Kirk and
Balance of Terror, right?
Balance of Terror. And the Romulan, and like, we could have been friends, except he was just born over there and I was born over here. Like, those guys could be just the perfect
frenemies.
I hate that phrase, but it's exactly the right word, Jeff.
It's kind of perfect. But yeah, so I think from here we're going to see a version of G'Kar going through the Stations of the Cross. And if people aren't familiar, Stations of the Cross is something that Catholics celebrate during the season of Lent, leading up to Easter, and it's where there are 14 stations where essentially you go through and pray through the steps that Jesus went through from being condemned to death through the scourging at the pillar and having to carry his cross all the way to his death. We're going to see him. We saw him condemned to death, basically. We saw him carry his cross. We're going to see him fall. We're going to see him meet someone that's important to him. We're going to see someone come and help him. We're going to see him fall again, and we're going to see him again meet other people that matter. But then we're going to see basically the end of him, where they're going to divide up his clothes, cast lots for all of his belongings, and then they're going to get ready to kill him. And that's when Londo's going to give the go ahead, whoosh, and flip the whole thing on its head.
Or what if they actually, quote unquote, kill him and G'Kar somehow resurrects or something like that?
So I didn't want to say it because it's like it's so on the nose right now that like I feel like that would be easy to do. You know what I mean? Like that's the easy way to do it, and I kind of hope it doesn't happen that way.
Well, I mean, because we'll talk about this more in just a moment, but did we kind of see Sheridan just resurrect from the dead?
I think we did.
I mean, did we just establish that happens in this world and in this universe? We'll talk about that. Jeff, I need you to make me a promise, though.
I'll do my best.
Okay, you are far more familiar with the Stations of the Cross than I am. I'm not Catholic. I wasn't born and raised in that. But I've always, it certainly is a background for me on the more Protestant side. I would love for you to track that story and just point it out in future episodes as we go. So this is where this was, and this is where this was, and this is where that piece was, and see if you're right.
Yeah.
Because you could be completely wrong, and that could not be what G'Kar goes through at all. But there's a piece of me that would love for that metaphor to exist here. And if it is, I would love for you to point it out.
Cool. I am on the case.
There you go.
Do you want to talk about Delenn and her stuff?
I want to talk about Delenn real quick. I had 2 notes on her. One, so she's fasting over her guilt. She feels really guilty, so she can't eat.
I had a hard time with the entire Delenn thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I forget which episode it was last season. It was the one where they were trying to like locate the pattern of attack with the shadows. She and Sheridan were, and I was just like, God, she's just fallen into kind of that traditional female gender stereotype role of a relationship in a lot of ways. And I feel like this was like a further slip away from her. I get that when you lose someone you love, there's a period where you're blaming yourself. And I can get for her that there's some real one-to-one relationship on I did this that led to this kind of stuff. Also, I feel like we spent the better part of 3 seasons establishing how wise she was. Like I remember back in the first season when we would have entire Delta conversations based on 2 lines that she said. Mm-hmm. Like she was this very wise. Don't hear me say, you move through trauma and whatever. It's not what I'm saying. But I feel like she has more wisdom than to basically resign herself to death because she's beaten herself up over this. It just I don't think it fit her character.
Yeah, I hear everything you're saying, but I would come back at you with saying it actually might be one of the most human things she could do, because people do stupid stuff for love.
It's true.
People do stuff for love, for guilt that is way outside the norm of who they tend to be.
That's true.
And that could also go positive as well. People do a whole lot of real positive stuff for the sake of love. I would also say that she probably has never really experienced these feelings before, and she's trying to deal with them for the first time. And just because she's wise, now she's got to figure out how does that work within
like a human emotional construct.
Yeah. How does she deal with that? So I didn't mind that so much. And you talk about the gender stereotype that she falls into. Help me process this, because there's a piece of me that goes, I hear what you're saying. Stereotypes exist for a reason, though.
Generally.
And Delenn is female. I know she was meant to be androgynous. You guys can save the comments. We know. But she is female, and she is meant to be female. So to fall into certain stereotypes that are of the female sex, like, I don't know that that's inherently a bad thing. Does that,
yeah,
I don't think it puts her in the weak category or anything of that nature.
I think it just doesn't jive with her character necessarily and it's not even being the female stereotype. To me, it doesn't jive with her character to fall into a stereotype, like, especially in terms of a relationship. Like like, oh, I'm going to play this role in the relationship. No, you are Satai. You are going to be the head of the Grey Council.
Yeah.
And you're just going to fall into a traditional relationship role all of a sudden. That's the piece that it kind of doesn't check for me.
Well, but then she gets all pissed off when she realizes, you know, what's what. She gets empowered. She sees the video and like, oh, this is what it was. And now I'm going to act that. And I actually really kind of dug it. Like, she's going to find herself, the best parts of herself. And she goes and calls all the Rangers together. Not all, but all the ones that are on the station anyway. Calls the Rangers together, which, by the way, I always forget that the Rangers are 1,000 years old, because in my mind, it's really something that Sinclair created when he got sent to Minbar, and that it's actually a new organization, that it's not this big old organization. In my mind, that's how it works.
Technically, it is something Sinclair started when he got sent to Minbar.
Sure.
It's just a different time.
I understand that. You're absolutely right. But she rallies him and she's like, we're going to go do this. And Jeff, I was curious in her sort of vision casting, rallying speech to her folks of saying, this is the plan and this is where we're going to go do. What did you make of that from a leadership standpoint?
I had to check myself a couple times, because at first I was just like, I would have outed 4 sentences into what she was saying. Just been like, oh, where's the restroom? Yikes, let me leave my pen right here. This lady's out of her mind. But then I had to remind myself this was a team of Rangers, people who've been through intense training and have done things. We live for the one, we die for the one, right? That's the culture of the Rangers. So she spoke to them as individuals. She spoke to their culture as Rangers. I thought it was an incredible rallying cry. Once I reminded myself of who she was talking to.
And she is the one.
She is.
They live for her and they die for her. Mm-hmm. They're going to go do it, like it or not. Was she abusing her position?
I think so. And so the note I actually have here is, this is the first time I've truly felt the loss of Old Kosh, because I feel like Old Kosh and her, the scene would have been different, where she's like, I'm going to get the Rangers and we're going to this. And he would just be like, oh, no.
Right.
and basically just begged her off of the whole thing. This isn't the way to go. This isn't the right thing. Sheridan has opened an unexpected door. You need to stop. Because I don't think, in fact, I have predictions for the next episode, but I don't think this is going to go well, this whole attack.
So you mentioned Kosh, and you mentioned what Kosh is thinking and what Kosh is saying. I don't think this is going to go well. We're going to stop. We're going to do this. Kosh has brought up a whole lot in the conversation between Sheridan and Lorian.
Mm-hmm.
And Lorian's like, yo, look, Kosh was not, he's clinging to life and he shouldn't be. This whole conversation. Are you okay transitioning to this?
Yeah, I had a couple super quick final thoughts, and was really on Franklin. I mentioned I had some notes, and I really want to bang this on the door for people. Old Franklin would have tried to talk her down when he came in and was like, look, you really should eat. You're not just a Minbari anymore. You've got human stuff as well. Old Franklin would have done something. He would have found a way to get her food. Instead, he handed her the facts, and then he walked away. And then later, when he was going through Sheridan's gear, he handed her the data crystal and he walked away. He's just like, I'm just going to show you what you already know and let you put these pieces together. I am really impressed with this step for Dr. Franklin. And I had an acting thought as well. The video, and I'm 100% sure you're going to talk about the line from the video of Sheridan when you do your closing thoughts, because it was amazing, right? If you find yourself falling off a cliff, might as well try and fly. Oh, that's so good. When Bruce Boxleitner was recording that log, right? I want to know, was Mira Furlan, was he looking at her? Like, was she in the room when he did that? Or did he have a picture of someone in his personal life? Like, did he have a picture of Melissa Gilbert up? Or maybe a younger sweetheart from before or something? Because it was so real when that was so well done. And that's a trick I've used in voice acting, where I'll have a picture of someone and I'll look at that and speak to it. And I'm curious if he did something similar, because that was a really, really well done scene.
So my understanding of how they filmed those scenes where people are on screen, I know you and I have often said that, like, oh, you can tell that that's filmed off somewhere in a corner and you've just got like a director like Pause, go. My understanding is the way they actually filmed that is they had these guys on set over here. They had that person in a set over there, and they actually were talking back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And the pause was just however long it took to transmit and for that person to hear and see. It's kind of like what you see on a newscast sometimes, that big awkward pause. So I don't know, but I think that just goes to talk about how great of an actor Bruce Boxleitner is. Can I just say that it was very clear to me that he recorded that particular piece now in season 4 with whatever this new hairstyle is that he has going on, and not back in season 3 when it supposedly was recorded.
Yes, it's very clear.
I mean, this would be like, I don't know, Jonathan Frakes recording a bit from season 1, but he still has the beard. Like, you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't quite work.
That's 3.
I'm okay with that.
You're out.
I'm okay with that.
Let's talk about Sheridan and Lorien.
Yeah. So at the risk of going through every line by line by line, a couple of things jump out. One, there's this big light thing that has 2 arms attaching into Sheridan, and he's asked 2 questions again and again. Who are you and what do you want? Who are you and what do you want? Who are you and what do you want? Now, what do you want should ring a big old freaking line to all of us who've been watching Babylon 5 for this amount of time.
Same with who are you at this point.
Now, where is the who are you? Do we hear the Vorlon say that quite a bit?
Sebastian and comes the Inquisitor.
Oh yeah,
asked that, and then Lorien busted that out at the end of the last episode. Where
Sure he did.
Who are you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jeff, I had a theory a long time ago that the Vorlons and Shadows were the same thing, 2 sides of the same coin, light and dark, a yin and a yang, that's type of deal. And I kind of pushed that off to the side. I want to bring that back because I think I might be right. And so I compared in my recap Lorien to being God. Now, I don't think that Lorien is when you think of the idea, the Judeo-Christian idea of God, who is this omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent being. I don't think that's what Lorien is. But this idea of I am the first one. I am the uncaused first cause. All of these are my children, and I hate to see them fighting. And for whatever reason, the Shadows keep trying to come get me. And there's this hole. And Jeff, I've got to ask, what is this hole? Where are we? Are we actually on Zahadum? Is this a portal somewhere else? Are we going into a different realm? What is this even a construct of Sheridan's mind and not something that is real? Where the freak are we? But yet, what this made me think of is when you go back to the early days of the Bible, when it talks about the creation of man and woman, and it says that God made them male and female, and he gave them both attributes of him. And there are some attributes that went to men, and there are some attributes that meant to women. And yes, we tend to use the male pronoun in reference to God, but the idea that God has all of these attributes together in one, and it's not split. The idea that Lorien can do the what do you want and who are you, and he says at one point, you've got to be able to say yes to both. You've got to be able to make peace with both, not just one or the other. And he calls out Kosh for saying, look, you're not even doing it all the way right, Kosh, you big angel out there. You got angels and demons. That's the Shadows or the demons. You got the angels. Angels and demons are supposed to be of the same ilk.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm back on the Vorlons and Shadows are the same thing, just of 2 sides of the same coin, going at it from 2 different ways.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think so. I'm gonna dive pretty deep here. So
please do
put the face mask on or whatever, so you can continue breathing oxygen. So threes are a big thing in Babylon 5, right? There's the Minbari, all the stuff. We had Zathras really breaking it down. There are 3 ones, all the stuff. There were 3 questions that Lorien kept asking. He was asking, who are you? What do you want? And why are you here?
Yeah.
So those were the 3. He added another one. So you have the Vorlons who took the who are you? You have the Shadows who took what do you want? And he somewhere were other first ones or someone else who had the why are you here? He's the last one that we know of holding on to that. So when I think 3, because I'm Catholic and because I've been watching Babylon 5 and I know JMS is not afraid to write in this vein, 3 is a really big number, right? And so the gospel, according to John, begins with this kind of breakdown of what is the basis for the Trinity. And it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning, and through him all things were made. Nothing came into being except through him. So basically, God and the Word are the same. Now, in the Bible and in the Catholic tradition, we go on to know that the Word becomes the burning bush for Moses, and then the Word becomes flesh in Jesus. And all this comes together through the Spirit. I think that Lorien is the first one, but I think he was part of a group. Like, I think he's like maybe the last of the first ones that were. These are our angels. So we have whatever deity, God, that exists. And then he created through the Word, through himself, he created angels. Like, that's stuff that's there, and there's angels going. Then there's the tradition that Lucifer says, I'm the most beautiful of all, which led to the fallen angels and Satan and the devils, or Satan, depending on how you say it. So he created these Lorien people, and they went and made things happen, and they had other like hierarchies of things that we look at as angels, the cherubim, the seraphim, and all those things. In this, they just happened to call them Vorlons and shadows. Probably used to call them, tiki gods and party first ones and whatever, and some went away and did their thing. These two split and went in different places. I think that Lorien is meant at the higher level to represent the message of whatever the universe, right? It's the universe in Babylon 5 is God, made flesh to bring the three, who are you, what do you want, why are you here, together into one. That one is going to be Sheridan. I went a lot of places.
I love every bit about that. Yeah. And at the risk of diving too far into the theology of all of it,
right,
and making those comparisons, that's probably a whole different podcast in and of itself. But I love the idea that Lorien is a representative of the Trinity. You said maybe he's the last of one. Listen, Jeff, with the Trinity, only one of the 3 members of the Trinity was in the form of human to be seen and interacted with on the physical plane. So maybe not the last one, but just he was the one of that form.
And that one in Catholicism, in the Catholic tradition, was the Word. When you say the Word of the Lord, that's Jesus.
Exactly.
Right. And so that's in the Word of the universe is Lorien.
Yeah. And I didn't even think about the idea that there are different types of angels that are out there with the cherubim and the seraphim. And when we talk about the ancient ones, there was the first ones and then the ancient ones, that those ancient ones that existed before would be angels and demons, and they have their deal. And then the people are created and they come into it. Now you're talking about the Minbar and the Nard and the Earthlings and the Centauri and all of, like all of that tracks. And it seems like that's a lot of where JMS is kind of going. And you look at the Lord of the Rings stuff. Okay, let's go with that. I don't know that there is a particular God figure in Lord of the Rings, but you definitely have you have the elves, and then you have Sauron and the orcs and what's going on there, and the wizards. Oh, you have the wizards that are getting involved in the whole thing. And then you come down the peg a little bit, and then you've got the men and the men of Rohan and the fights that they're having amongst themselves, the dwarves and the other elves, I guess, and the hobbits, and that all tracks and makes sense from a narrative and a story point. So my question is this: I've got to ask this question: what is the nature of Zahadum? Is Zahadum heaven? Is it limbo? Is it because he talks about,
so he described about being in between, right? He very eloquently, it's between the tick and the tock, right? The tick being life and the tock being death. And that was with his big creepy fingers as he literally waved his hands back and forth with the tick and the tock. It was a very poetic way of just saying this is the in-between place, which, back to Sheridan's vision, I think that Lorien is the man in between that Kosh was pointing him to. Like, hey, I've been here. you're going to go there and you're going to do better than I did. So, there's the man in between. But I think that this is limbo. The concept of heaven, the concept of hell, those are Christian thoughts. And there are some other religions within that, Islam and others that care. But, for Judaism, that's not a thing. For Hinduism, that's not necessarily a thing. For, other ones. So, I mean, we think in terms of heaven and hell, but that's a super Western ideology that exists. It makes a lot of sense to believe if the universe is the deity, essentially, well, then there's the in-between place that exists. And I think Zahadum is the nexus, the doorway between those places. And that's where he's sitting between the tick and the tock.
Because he says the shadows continually come back. They're drawn back. They don't live here. They're just drawn back here, and they think somehow it's respectful to be coming back. And I guess they got to get knocked down every once in a while.
That was powerful to me. It made me think of Jerusalem is what it made me think of, right? So you've got the strong Jewish presence, the waning Christian presence, and then the Muslim presence in there. And so they go there out of respect, right? But they've forgotten, because that's one of the most war torn. You know what I mean? It's like there's constant battle. It's unsafe. There's war, and it's like it's not the point of this place. And I could see Laurie in it too, and they come back like you don't even know what you're doing anymore. You're just here because you've been doing it for 1,000,000 years, which I think also describes a lot of religious tradition.
So it's pretty clear Lorien caught Sheridan.
Mm-hmm.
He says that. Sheridan has no pulse in this place.
Yeah, that was a cool breakdown. Shouldn't you be hungry? Don't you have a pulse?
Yeah, none of that stuff. And he gets to a spot, and I'll talk more about this, but he says, you're clinging to life. You have a Vorlon inside you. You're both clinging to life. You got to let go. And Sheridan's like, I can't let go. I can't let go. You got to let go. It reminded me of yet another Bible verse. He who would cling to his life will lose it. You must let it go to save it. There was that piece, but you have to lay down your burden and surrender yourself to the talk. You're not embracing life. You're fleeing death. So you're caught in between, he says. And he says, and that's not what I love this. That's not what your friends need. They need you to be you, not somebody who is scared to be you. You need to just be able to be, so that you can do what you got to do and your friends can have the you that you need, and then he asked Sheridan to do basically a big trust fall into death's arms.
Yep. It was great how he said it though. And it really rang a bell for me, because he talked about, it's easy to find something worth dying for. Find something worth living for.
Sure. I feel like I heard that in a Rocky movie once.
You actually heard it in season 1 of Babylon 5. When, I forget the episode, but Sinclair did some wild whatever thing, as he often did, and Garibaldi came into his quarters afterwards, and he's like, dude, you're looking for a reason to die all the time. You need to go find a reason to live. Can't remember which episode it was in, but like beat for beat that happened. It was one of those things, I still ask, right, what was a Sinclair needed thing? And I wonder if was a through line to this for that.
So Sheridan was the first one to make it this far.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means exactly.
How many others have tried? Have any others tried? Why? What is it special about Sheridan? Is there something because Kosh was inside of him that he could make it through?
He's that amalgam of human and Vorlon or something.
Did Lorien just let all the other people fall and go splat? Or
how many people are going to Zahadum and jumping down the Sarlacc pit? Like, is that a pilgrimage thing they're doing?
Do the shadows try to jump down and he
right?
Boost them back out? Like, I don't know.
I think they are. I think that's part of why that hole exists. I still believe like they're like doing some archaeological dig where they think they can physically get back to Lorien or whatever.
Like a reverse Tower of Babel.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah. Because it's in instead of up. And so I think that's going to come up, I think, pretty soon. That's one of my season 4 predictions. It's growing.
So Jeff, I sense that we're getting very close to our Delta Fury talk. Before we get there, we have to talk about Garibaldi and what's going on with Garibaldi real quick.
Really quick, I want to touch on some of the prophecies that Majel Barrett gave to Londo, because I think we spelled one out here.
Okay.
And so Lorien, when he's talking to Sheridan, tells him to step into the abyss before he starts embracing death and everything goes dark for him.
Mm-hmm.
In War Without End, Part 1, Londo's first line to Sheridan as he wakes up is, welcome back from the abyss. I think Sheridan is the one who is already dead. He's already died, and this will be Londo's last chance. And that's why between that moment where he says, welcome back from the abyss, and he goes off and has his first kiss with Delenn, and then comes back, is when he's like, this is my last chance. I have to let you go. And then I have to give up what's most important to me and let G'Kar kill me.
So because the prophecy said, don't kill the one who is already dead.
Mm-hmm.
And if Sheridan is the one who is already dead, don't kill him, let him go. Interesting. And that would be a moment of redemption for you. Okay.
Yep. That's his last moment. And then his final moment, of course, is asking G'Kar to do him in.
Yep.
So Garibaldi.
So the whole episode is titled Whatever Happened to Mr. Garibaldi. And in 1 minute and 40 seconds, he was trapped in a Psycor cell.
Dude, that was an intense 100 seconds. The beats, the language, the editing, the room, the set, like everything. That was super intense, I thought.
I don't get this whole piece. Like I'm kind of upset with this whole thing right now because Sheridan told Garibaldi, I've got something I need you to do. Garibaldi gets in a Starfury. How often have we seen Garibaldi in a Starfury in this show?
A couple times.
Not much. Right. Garibaldi goes out in a Starfury. The way I read it, he clearly allowed himself to either be captured by a shadow ship or he like secretly landed on one and was hitching a ride, was a stowaway. I'm not sure which way it went. And in my thought, that guy was going to take him back to Zaldum or something. And he was, or whatever's going to happen. But no, that doesn't work. Now he's trapped in a Psycor room with no ceiling, doors, or walls. Or he has walls, I guess, just no ceiling or doors. Like no way out is what I'm saying. There's no way out. And I'm like, and this whole episode was how whatever happened to Mr. Garibaldi. Like, that's it?
Yeah, we know nothing.
What? I don't understand.
I'm not convinced it's really Psycor.
Oh, really?
That did it either. Because if it was Psycor, why would they need him to tell him anything? They just read his mind, pull it out of him. Part of me thinks it might be maybe he was wherever he was, and then Bester showed up, and that's Bester with the mask, and boop boop pew. He shot his way through. He's doing a big rescue effort for Garibaldi.
Oh, so this is Bester come to rescue Garibaldi.
Yeah, maybe. And it's not even like they'll find out it's some smugglers or it's interplanetary expeditions, trying to do something with him or whatever.
But what was it that Sheridan wanted him to go do? And why did he put him in that spot in the whole first place? Like, I don't understand.
I have no idea yet. But I am of the opinion that he was not expecting that shadow to come and take him.
That was the whole plan went awry when that happened.
Yeah, but I don't know. It could go either way. But we'll find out right here next week. So I just jumped.
Maybe
because really that is the thing. Yeah. But I do think it's time right now that we've hit that point of this conversation. Yeah, we're going to boil this all down. We're going to see if this episode has any deep morals to it, messages. Maybe it's holding up a mirror to society or giving us hope, beautiful hope that we'll be better in the future. You're going to do this, Brent, by rating this episode on a scale of 0 to 5 Delta Furies as to how strong the message is and just how Babylon 5 it was delivered.
So, Jeff, you mentioned earlier, super cool line that Sheridan gives us by his dad. When you're falling off a cliff, you might as well try to fly. I'm not going to touch that one.
Oh, okay.
That was a cool line that your dad just used to tell you as a kid. If you want to touch on that and go off on it, go for it.
Well, hey,
good
there's
advice,
all of it.
Maybe not good advice. Do what now?
Yeah. That's it. That's all of it. What he said, that's the thing. That's the lesson. Go for it.
Right. Now, I'm going to go to something that actually we've touched on a handful of times, and I'm a little surprised to see it continue to come back up throughout the course of Babylon 5, except this is JMS's thing, and he keeps writing it. And it really, to me, comes down to the conversation between Sheridan and Lorien. And it's super in your face in this episode. He says this: your friends need what you can be when you're no longer afraid, when you know who you are and why you are and what you want, when you're no longer looking for reasons to live, but can simply be. Jeff, the people in your life need you to be you. They need you to be at your best. You're never going to be your best if you're circling the wagons all the time around yourself. You're never going to be your best if you don't know who you are. You'll never be your best if you're always trying to be something else. I think it is the nature of people, possibly men, but I think really just sort of people. We have a continual search for significance. We look for it in our jobs, in our careers. You look for it in your paycheck. You look for it in what you can provide for your family. You look for it in your influence and your power, and these, like, that's where you're looking for significance, for who you are, to define who you are. Those things never satisfy. Those things are never who you are. My son plays chess, and not very well. He constantly loses. You want to know why he constantly loses? Because he spends his time positioning his pieces to protect his king. He is not trying to go out and attack and win. He's just trying to not lose. And you can't win that way. I think it's the same thing in life. If you spend your life not knowing who you are, you can't be you. You just have to be you, as simple as that. And that's what the people around you need to be. Folks out there who've been listening for a while may know I am a stay-at-home dad. I'm a stay-at-home dad who is a homeschooling father. And let me tell you what, in my line of work, 99.8% of the people out there are moms, not dads. I go to conferences. I get emails all the time. Hey, moms. Hey, moms. How are you, moms? I got to tell you, when I left the workforce, the outside workforce, and came home as a stay-at-home dad and began homeschooling, I struggled a lot with my identity and who I was and where my value was for my family. And let me tell you, I wasn't the best dad I could be during that time. I was not the best husband I could be at that time because I was constantly worried about who I was. I didn't know who I was because my career was not there for me anymore. The paycheck was not there for me anymore. I questioned what good am I adding to my family dynamic here? Sure, I could reason it away, but I didn't know it in my heart. I didn't know it in the core of who I was. It took a long time, but I eventually learned that my value to my family laid in me, being me, just me. Like, that's what my kids need. They just need their dad. That's what my wife needs. She just needs a husband. She doesn't need somebody to come in and fix all of her stuff. She just needs a partner, someone to be there, someone to just love. Frankly, I also needed that. I needed to not be worried about a career and a title and that sort of identity. I have to tell you, when I realized that my value never laid in my job, it never laid in my paycheck, it never laid in a title, it never laid in position, it never laid in power, but it just laid in my personhood for my family. Living in that place now, acting out of that place, I can do anything I need to do. I walk proudly and confidently into any situation. I'm not afraid to try new things. I'm not afraid to put myself out there because the truth is, here's what I know, Jeff. If I fail, what does that change about who I am as a person? Absolutely nothing. It does not faze me at all because of who I am. And that's my kid's father. That's my wife's husband. That's where my value is in my personhood. And honestly, even if God forbid those two things were taken away from me, I am still me. My value is still me. And the people around me who are left need me. That's how I am the most value to my family. Lorian said to share it in your friends. The world, the galaxy needs you to be you. Folks, we need you to be you. One last story and I'll close this out. I remember some years ago, I was a camp counselor, Jeff, with a bunch of kids. Now, this camp had a zip line on it. Now, I've never done a zip line. And some people know I'm a rather larger guy. Weight limits are a thing I have to be aware of. Me and plastic chairs are not best friends. Let me tell you, I go through some of them. Wicker seats, not doing it. Zip lines, no, because I ain't need that thing to break on me. I remember the kids bugged me. Oh, come do it. And I'd lie and I'd be like, oh, I've done it before. It's not that big. I don't really like it. I'll be okay. Finally, I shot my mouth off. I said, okay, fine. Listen, if they have a harness that fits me, I'll go do it. Didn't believe for a second they had a harness that fit me. Well, guess what? They had a harness that fit me, dang it. And I got up there and I'm talking to the camp director. This became a big deal. Brent's going to go down the zip line. Brent's going to go down the zip line. Everybody in the camp knew it. I'm like, oh my God, what are you guys doing? He's like, he looked at me one day. He's like, you're going to be fine. I was like, what do you mean? He said, those 2 carabiner hooks, those things test for over 5,000 pounds. You're not 5,000 pounds, are you? No. He's like, that harness isn't going to rip. He's like, we test that thing by throwing a car down it, a 10,000 pound car. Doesn't phase it. You're not going to hurt this thing. It's not going to break on you. Did I believe that? No.
Nope.
I was like, I remember being on the edge of that platform. I'm up there. I'm strapped in. I'm hooked in. People, I mean, they had video camera crews out there. Like the camp just did this whole thing. It was kind of weird, but it was kind of cool at the same time. And I'm just sitting up there and I remember having this thought. So what happens if this thing snaps and I fall? I wasn't scared of dying. You know what I was more scared of? Breaking my neck and being a paraplegic for the rest of my life.
Oh, wow.
That's what I was really scared of. And I had this thought sitting there. Let's say it happens. What does that change about who I am as a person? And the answer was nothing, because my value doesn't lie in my ability to walk or the things I can do. My value lies in me being me. And with that knowledge and that comfort and that security, that was a breakthrough moment for me. I was able to go down that zip line. And you know what? I went down that thing like Superman, because turns out I'm top heavy, and where they put the harness, like it was just below my center of gravity. So I flipped upside down and I went all the way down. But it held. The line held. The zip line held. Point being, Sheridan had to let go of these things he was clinging to in order to find his real life, in order to be the person everybody else needed to be. And I'll say it one more time. JMS has said it so many times throughout the series of Babylon 5, and I'll say it here. Folks, it's not in what you do or what you bring to the table. It's in you. And that's what people need you to be. And that's frankly what you need you to be. Jeff, to me, you couldn't have done this in Star Trek. This is a story that was uniquely Babylon 5. This is a 5 Delta Fury episode to me.
Yeah, I can't argue. I totally agree. This was so powerful. And it was funny too. I like how you started the whole thing with this. How many times have we brought this up? I mean, the concept, I call it the be, do, have concept, right? And I mean, we so many times we've talked through this. Like, this is the message of Babylon 5. Be you, the you you're meant to be. And I think when I think about that, it becomes really powerful when we look at some of these people. I look at Delenn, for example. There's Delenn the Minbari, right? Is that who she was meant to be? Clearly, no. She was meant to be Delenn, the one who is half Minbari, half human. Sinclair, you could even say. Was he really Sinclair, or is he actually Ben Valen all along and just needed to come to a place where he saw that and could accept that? What is Sheridan going to be when he comes back, right? I think that Sheridan has spent a lot of his life trying to be a good son to his dad and his mom, trying to be a conspiracy theorist for one episode, trying to be a good soldier. Right? You know, trying to be a good soldier, then trying to be these things. And I think face to face with death, right? Being trapped between the tick and the talk, he finally knows for the first time who John Sheridan really is. And I think when he comes back, it's not going to be business as usual with him. And I think it's going to be really exciting and really cool.
You know, we are here creating the absolute 100% completely accurate definitive ranking of the 4th season of Babylon 5. Jeff, it falls on you this week, my friend. Where are you placing whatever happened to Mr. Garibaldi? Now, we only have one episode outside of this one. This is only episode number 2. Last week's episode, The Hour of the Wolf, is currently sitting at number 1. Jeff, this is on you this week. Does whatever happened to Mr. Garibaldi top The Hour of the Wolf and knock it out of the top spot? Or does Hour of the Wolf remain the king of season 4 so far?
Hour of the Wolf was such a fantastic episode. It's my favorite season opener to date, right? It's only one that can unseat it. Maybe it will change our mind on a second watch through, but it was so good in so many ways. And we talked about that last week. This episode had so much going for it. We just talked about it. It's a 5 Delta Fury episode. Fantastic. It was also a little disjointed, had a lot of weird different stories that were being told that weren't maybe necessarily mechanically done in a way that was super cohesive. But you know what we got in this episode? We got Londo and Jakar. and we got Londo going through a monologue that it's been 2 days since I last watched this episode. It is still haunting me, the way he delivered that line, especially when he's like, they'll cut you from here to here. And he went into that, oh my God, like the places that Peter Jurczyk had to go in his mind and his psyche to be able to deliver that. It's horrifying to think about that. That's one of those scenes. They got done recording, right, and shooting. He walked out the door, and then he probably went and threw up or passed out, or cried in a ball in the corner somewhere. It was so powerful. Brent, this is the new number 1 episode of season 4.
Cannot disagree whatsoever.
That's it for whatever happened to Mr. Garibaldi. Next week, we are watching The Summoning for the first time. Now, we've never seen these episodes before. We haven't read any recaps or synopses. We haven't looked at thumbnails or anything. We just know the title of the episode, and the game we love to play is guessing what it's going to be about based on title alone. Brent, what do you think The Summoning is going to be about?
Okay, I'm going with Sheridan. I think we've got this. We're on the Sheridan train right now. I think this one focuses on Sheridan, at least the summoning aspect. I still kind of feel like there's a little bit of the breaking of the fellowship, and we're following all the different stories. Like there's going to be Londo. Now it's Londo and Jakar, and maybe Veer's over here, and we've got Delenn and the Rangers heading out over this way, and you've got Sheridan and Lorien hanging out over here, and Garibaldi's doing whatever. We'll figure that out soon too. But I think the summoning is going to focus on Sheridan, and somehow he is going to be summoning the power of the ancients to himself. As he seems to have let go, he's found his reason to live, not his reason to not die. And he's gonna, like, I think Sheridan's about to level up.
Okay.
And it's there's a reason he's the only one to ever make it down here. And like, I'm not saying he's gonna achieve God status or he's ascending or anything like that.
No Jason Ironheart for him yet.
No, but he is leveling up, and whatever that means. And or it's the other way. He's going to be summoned by a collective of the ancient ones. They didn't die. They just went out beyond the rim. So maybe he's going to be summoned beyond the rim to discuss something, maybe something along those lines. Think like Jim in Troll Hunters getting summoned to the ancient troll hunters to go talk with them, or something like that. Is
like basically guess. Sheridan's journey isn't done. He's not popping back to Babylon 5 necessarily.
I don't think so. Not yet. I think he's got it. There's a leveling up he's got to go through now that he's gone through his piece with Lorien. What about you?
I think this one's going to focus on Garibaldi. Actually,
I kind of hope so.
I hope so too. But I think this is going to be. It's going to go into some of what led to, like, we're going to get a little flashback to like what led to that scene, because he clearly was under duress and had some stuff. They mentioned multiple times, if it doesn't put the lotion on its skin, it gets the hose again, basically. And so it's like he's been through some. We're going to get some of that. I think that the episode will ultimately end with his. I still think it's Bester coming in at the end to save him, and I think it's going to be kind of them busting out to head to Babylon 5. But I think the summoning piece is going to be Delenn summoning the rest of the Rangers and the few remaining League worlds that are interested in pitching in. But I don't think things are going to go well for this Zahadum mission, but I don't think that's going to go badly on Zahadum. I think it's going to go badly on Babylon 5. Like, people are going to start questioning why she's making this decision. And there's going to be a lot of strife really about her, really what Naroon was talking about in, was that Ceremonies of Light and Dark? I mean, no.
Interludes and Examinations.
Yeah, and Interludes and Examinations, where he's like, you're going after power, you're doing all these things. I think some of that's going to come to a head, and her little battle fleet, like before, like it's going to start falling apart, delaying it. And so then over, not like maybe in 2 episodes from now, when Sheridan does come back to Babylon 5, it'll be just in time for him to be like, no, don't go there. We're going to go do this thing instead. And we're going to find out right here next week. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcasts. And please stop by Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Good Pods, anywhere. Leave us a rating, a review. We'll read it here on the podcast. So, Brent, until next time.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah, what's up?
Do you, by any chance, happen to know where Mr. Garibaldi might be?
I do not. And no one knows the shape of the future or where it will take us.
I mean, we're not some deep space franchise. This station is about something.
I mean, there's a story there. We haven't, because we're going to read that autobiography after we're through the series. Becoming Superman, I think it's called.
Yeah, you're going to read that autobiography. Is it on Audible?
I'm sure it is.
That's about the only way that Brent reads these days, is if it's on Audible.
I think I've heard that Peter Jurasik actually does the narration. I think.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Oh yeah, I'm in for that.